Of course, I knew, I never forgot, that far away beyond Fountain Lake, over across Rainbow Avenue, was the true secret goal of every visit. The best amusement park ever, at least until Disneyland.
Once you're out of the dark, you're out of the night. Step into the sun, step into the light. Keep straight ahead for the most glorious place on the face of the earth or the sky. Hold on to your breath, hold on to your heart, hold on to your hope. March up to the gate and let it open. Open, open.
Ha ha ha, ho ho ho, and a couple of tra-la-las. That's how we laugh a day away in the merry old land of Oz. Buzz, 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 chuck, 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 and a couple of la-dee-das. That's how the crickets speak all day in the merry old land of Oz. We get up at 12 and start to work at 1. Taking out for lunch and then at 2 we're done. Jolly good fun, ha ha ha, ho ho ho, and a couple of tra-la-las. That's how we laugh a day away in the merry old land of Oz. Ha ha ha, ho ho ho, ha ha ha.
The amusement area wasn't even really a zone, like food. Splendid as it was, the designers were a little ashamed of it. But it could be pretty educational, too. Some of the most educational exhibits I never got into, like the Frozen Alive Girl, or the Dream of Venus, designed for the fair by Salvador Dali. And further out, there were some attractions that could have been on the midway of any state fair. They weren't science, and they weren't art. They were just there. Yes, this was there too. You could even take pictures. Everybody went to the fair, even if only in the newsreels.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask you a few questions.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Well, I have a lot of friends around out where I live out on the coast, and they'd like to come and visit the World's Fair, but I want to ask you if there's any place that they could stay other than the Park Avenue Hotel.
Why, sure, Mickey. New York City's like every other town in this country, except that we can give you better accommodation and better food for less money. Now they can come here, and Judy, you have friends too, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
Now you can tell the boys and girls, the high school students, that they can come to New York and get accommodations, safe, sanitary, cheerful, inspected rooms, all the way from 50, 75 cents a night. And if they come in groups, we can give to them as cheap as 50 cents a night.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, that looks like we're going to move in.
You better not. You move in, you tell the kids, and hey, what do you think of this fair? Isn't it great?
It's really wonderful.
Isn't it fine?
Grover Whalen strove to get his fair mentioned in the newspapers every day and in the newsreels every week. Usually accompanied by Mayor LaGuardia, Whalen lent himself to any exhibitor who asked. In the newsreels, the two of them seem to appear always together, like Abbott and Costello. The little car is a Crosley. It was designed to save gas, of all unlikely things, and didn't catch on. Amid all the new cars shown at the fair, Fords being especially visible, the car of the future was easy to overlook. Whalen and LaGuardia on Ford Day.
It's a great privilege for we at the New York World's Fair to have 3 generations of the Ford family here today to inaugurate the Ford exhibit. And I'm sure His Honor the Mayor would like to say a word to you personally, Mayor LaGuardia.
Ford, on behalf of the City of New York, it's a pleasure to extend to you official welcome of the city. Very happy to have you here. Of course, your name is not unknown in New York City, as my traffic officers inform me from time to time, and we know that your exhibit will be a great success.
Thank you. Governor Smith, will you speak for old New York?
Well, I can remember this part of New York when it was old, and it's hard to believe that in such a short period of time, you could transform an ash dump into what can be seen here today.
Mr. Ford, will you tell us what you think of the roads of tomorrow of your own exhibit, please? And the New York World's Fair.
They're all right. They're all right.
Hot Dog Day. Whalen and LaGuardia on Hot Dog Day. In those days, no special event seemed to be complete without hot dogs. When the King and Queen of England came to America, they had a picnic with FDR up at Hyde Park, and the president served them hot dogs. And then they sailed down the Hudson, and Mayor LaGuardia met them and escorted them to the fair, where they were to be shown every honor that Grover Whalen could think up. Never since then has there been built such a perfect stage for ceremony, pomp, display. Albert Speer's designs for Hitler, Mussolini's new city in Rome, were larger. But they lacked this cheerful dignity, this American optimism. We loved the King and Queen. They had that British pluck. They'd come to win American hearts for Britain. Looked very likely that within the year they'd be at war with Hitler. Nazi Germany was not represented at the fair. On Japan Day, Grover Whalen and Mayor LaGuardia came to the Japanese pavilion and received a torch of eternal friendship from the Japanese government. Amid all the false futures at the fair, the true futures, and they were there too, were hard to discern.
You'd better take another look. He never had a camera like that one. That's a television camera.
Holy smokes, does it work?
Of course. You go down there, Mr. Middleton. You can see and hear Bud on a whole row of television receivers.
You better be good.
Bud, this is Frank Wells. Frank, this is Bud Middleton from the old hometown.
How are you, Bud?
Hiya.
Now, just act and talk naturally.
Oh, is it going?
It's on.
Hiya, folks. This is Clark Gable Middleton speaking. As you can see if you've got your television sets turned on.
What state are you from, Bud?
Indiana, the greatest state in the world. And if Grover Whalen's listening in, New York's okay, too.
Well, what do you think of the fair?
Well, as a guy I once studied about said, I came, I saw, and I'm almost conquered. How am I doing, Dad?
Bud's doing fine. He's found his medium. We'd be seeing a lot of him and his family in the years to come, bringing us messages of every kind.
That's what I call smart. Making time the theme of the home exhibit. I don't get it. What's smart about it?
Well, if there was one thing a woman in my day never had enough of, it was time. It was her master. Some had two, if they had a bossy husband.
Don't tell me you're against husbands, Grandma.
No, indeed. Only against slavery. Domestic or otherwise. That's why I like electrical engineers. They signed our Emancipation Proclamation. Oh, I love to see.
There's a lot of action over here. She's mopping up with a towel to get the water. Some of the dishes she dried a few minutes ago. That water in the pan is an awful messy-looking sight, folks. I wish you could see it. Incidentally, in the entire operation, the dishwasher will use a total of only 15 quarts of water, which is a lot less than Mrs. Drudge's used. Hurry, Mrs. Drudge, before it's too late. That water's coming out very fast. Too late. There's the last drop of water, folks. The contest is over in exactly 7 minutes and 58 seconds. In that time, Mrs. Modern has washed 50 dishes and 40 pieces of silverware. Well, it's all over, Mrs. Drudge. You may as well rest now. As I've said before, ladies and gentlemen, this contest is going to be scored on 3 counts. First, the time it takes to do the dishes. Unquestionably, Mrs. Modern wins on that score. Second, the cleanliness of the dishes. They are clean, they are dry, and sparkling. They do honor to any woman's table, so Mrs. Modern wins point number 2. Her dishes are certainly cleaner. And now, point number 3. The condition of the contestants. Mrs. Modern looks as fresh and neat as when she stepped into the ring. While Mrs. Drudge, well, I'll have to leave that to you. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the winner, Mrs. Modern.
Oh, what a beautiful kitchen. Neat, isn't it? Neat? Nothing. It's a paradise.
This is the new electric dishwasher.
That's keen.
Bud and Dad would sure go for it. They're the official dish dryers. Tom's going to get me a dishwasher like that for my birthday. It's the last thing he ever does. But, Mother, your birthday was last month. Well, I've just decided I'm going to have another.
We came, we saw. Were we conquered? We marveled. We believed that this was the world science could make for us without really trying to understand it. The consumer exhibits were the most popular. The new cars, the television, the aerated bread, the dishwashers. My average family didn't get a dishwasher until after the war. But we did get a new streamlined cold spot refrigerator that year. I remember it well. So maybe in the end, we real people learned our lessons too.
I just apologized to Professor Einstein for the weather. And he said it's all right, it's just water.
If science, like art, is to perform its mission truly and fully, its achievements must enter not only superficially, but with their inner meaning into the consciousness of people.
Einstein came there one night to do something scientific. I forget exactly what, that turned on the lights of the fair. Yes, science did enter only superficially into the world of tomorrow, and not with its inner meaning. It was magic in the end. It was illusion. And at night, it was even more of an emerald city. out of water. Amazing. There were fireworks every night, every single night.
I wonder if the years ahead will be as bright as this.
We haven't seen anything yet, darling. Why, all this is merely a sample of the real world of tomorrow.
This conquering the future business has its pitfalls. It was easier to make things look different than to make them different. Easier to streamline the present than to see in it the seeds of the future and tell which ones would grow and which would not.
Lower Manhattan, with its towering skyscrapers, the heart of America's trade and commerce, needs the greatest protection our nation can provide. Every modern method of defense is being tested to give this vital spot the greatest protection possible.
Make your dive so as to get your elevation and lay the bottom of the screen about 60 to 70 feet above the water.
4 Army Air Corps attack planes leaving Mitchell Field, Long Island, to lay a smoke screen about the southern tip of Manhattan to conceal New York's famous skyline. They're off.
Streaking down from the sky at 180 miles an hour, 4 Army Air Corps planes let out their blinding curtain. The world's largest city, almost totally obscured by man's newest marvel, the new non-poisonous smoke screen that is being tested for New York's wartime defense.
A few years before, when we tried this trick, our army was smaller than the army of Bulgaria. There was a war in our future, and it would be an air war. We were right about that. It would differ from our predictions, though. Our predictions were both insufficient and outlandish. They always are. We are always somehow responsible for the future, even though we can't predict it. In 1939, the past had claims on us that could not be ignored. Claims that were about to be presented. Under these imaginary wheels and wings, a real future was coming into being. A future the World's Fair could not conquer, because the World's Fair was unwilling to imagine it. Here is part of a film about the fair made in 1939 by these two brothers, the Matusas brothers, Lithuanian immigrants. Lithuania, like every country, had its own day at the fair to celebrate itself and show itself off to the world. The Matusas brothers planned to take their film back to Lithuania and show the old country how well its children were doing in the new. That summer, Hitler and Stalin signed a non-aggression pact, dividing up the states between them as a buffer zone. Lithuania was forced to cede much of its territory to Stalin. There would be, before this film was ready to be seen, no Lithuanian nation for the Matusas brothers to return to. The 60 foreign nations represented at the fair showed the products of their peaceful and industrious peoples and proclaimed the interdependence of man. The fair called itself a force for peace in the world. Yet even before the fair opened, Italy overran Ethiopia. That fall, Germany invaded Poland. Before the fair ended its first year, France and Britain were at war with Germany. Czechoslovakia's pavilion celebrated the independence it had won after the First War, but that nation's dismemberment had begun even before its pavilion was completed in 1938. 1938, the year of the Munich Accords, the year the war that ended in 1918 began again in earnest.
Through days clamorous with alarms, America watches and listens. Czechoslovakia sends Minister Herban, who visits the State Department and tells newsmen of his beleaguered nation.
How large is your army?
Well, now they are mobilized about 1,200,000.
You have about 2 million people altogether ready for service?
Oh, we have 15 million, every child, every old man.
Every child and every old man.
The Czechs got no support for their stand. The Sudetenland was ceded to Hitler without a fight. Within a year, a coup had destroyed what remained of free Czechoslovakia. Its pavilion stood still across the sea through 1939 and 1940. On its walls, the ancient prophecy: after the tempest of wrath has passed, the rule of thy country will return to thee, O Czech people. What we here would do, we thought, was to stay out of the European and Asian conflicts, the old hatreds, the terrifying new orders being imposed. We had no desire to fight. War was useless, old-fashioned, barbaric, and the fighting was far away. In the first wave of enthusiasm for this fair, its board thought it could run for 5 years, maybe become permanent, a host to the nations. By summer's end, it was obvious that 1940, its second year, would be its last. Whalen had sold the future to the world, but he hadn't sold enough tickets to the fair. As the fair went deeper into the red, his headline entertainers tried to help him out.
Kind of warm up here. My makeup is running all over my clothes. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to sing a little parody on the World's Fair, and I think New York people will understand it. I don't know how the boss, Mr. Whalen's going to take it, but to me it's funny. Just a little bit of garbage fell from off the sky one day, and it landed in a place, I think they call it the Flushing Bay. And a little more garbage collected in just a little while, and it formed a great big piece of land that looked like Barren Isle. Mr. McInerney got a great idea, and Moses thought it was swell. So they planted a lot of roses just to take away the smell. Then they fronted it with a man named Whalen to give the place a flair. Now it costs you 75 cents to go in and they call it the World's Fair. Of this great crowd is most encouraging. The presence of still greater crowds at the fair would be more encouraging still. Don't miss it. And when these people go out to sell their tickets to tell you more, buy and buy and buy.
If Waylon wasn't showing a profit, it wasn't for lack of trying.
Sound the brass, roll the drum. To the world of tomorrow we come. See the sun through the gray. It's the dawn of a new day. Here we come, young and old. Come to watch all the wonders unfold. And the tune that we play is the dawn of a new day. Tell the wolf at the door that we don't want him round anymore. Better times here to stay as we live and laugh the American way. Come hail the dawn of a new
Late that summer, Waylon brought the fair down to Wall Street for a last desperate ticket-selling push. A poll showed that a lot of average Americans weren't coming to the fair because they thought it was above their heads. They were afraid they might be high-hatted and not have a good time. Not have a good time? With free swing bands and dancing every night? With Bojangles starring in the Hot Mikado? Let's go, people.
We want you to know that you can live in New York while visiting the fair just as cheaply and better than you can in your own homes, and that you could if visiting a county fair.
The world at the fair. Their father and mother and sister and brother, oh, everyone's there. The world at the fair. From France to Australia, from Maine to Westphalia, oh, everyone's there. You're sure to meet Tom, Dick, and Harry, and maybe the one you'll eventually marry. If you should be there, you'll never regret it, and never forget it, for the whole world's at the fair. All out for the World Fair, all out for the fair. Watch the doors,
Oh, well, you look. I never seen the like. Never did.
What's this? Oh. Oh. Wonderful. Yes, sir.
Must be homes built while you wait. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Gosh, I'm kind of thirsty. How about you?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well.
Look at that. Well, I never. Fresh, too. Well. Think I'll tidy up a bit.
Uh-huh. See you later, Elmer.
All right, Randy. Well, what in tarnation? Hey! Look out there. What you doing? Oh! Oh! Oh, some service. Yeah. Oh. Swing your partner. To and fro, round you go. Well, what's this? Oh. Look what I got, Randy. New gas bucket. Get in, Randy. Let's go, Elmer. Come on, dog biscuit, we're off.
The New York World's Fair of 1940 was a somewhat different thing than the fair of 1939. The 39 fair had lost money despite all of Whalen's efforts. He was removed as president and replaced by Harvey Gibson, a banker.
I can assure you, those of you who attend the fair this year, that you will like it very much.
To get the fair into the black, Gibson lowered the admission price, dropped a lot of the social purpose stuff, and hugely expanded the entertainment zone, renamed the Great White Way. Gibson thought he knew more about the average American than the designers of Democracy City did.
What's the rank?
6 1/4.
6 1/4.
For 1940, Billy Rose needed new girls for the Aquacade, the most popular show at the fair, both years. The lake where the Aquacade was held, Fountain Lake, had also been renamed. Now it was Liberty Lake. In fact, the whole fair had been renamed. Its theme was no longer building the world of tomorrow, but for peace and freedom.
I may have been a Republican. I may have been a Democrat. But whatever my party may be, I am an American. And I glory in the knowledge that in our country, a president is chosen not to tell Americans what to do, but to do what Americans want.
There was no doubt we were getting the jitters.
I am pleased to report that today, all law enforcement...
J. Edgar Hoover came to the fair after a mysterious explosion damaged the British Pavilion.
in every state, county, and municipality throughout our land. Remember always that the spy and the saboteur or the destroyer carries no badge. He hides behind 100 fronts. He pretends innocence. He likes to rub elbows with patriotic men because he can thus seek to break down morale and to preach unpreparedness and undermine honesty.
It was the same fair, only the heart seemed to have left it. It had become pretty obvious what tomorrow was going to be like. And the day after tomorrow was far away. At the British Pavilion, they showed a captured German parachute used for mining the British coasts. That summer, Denmark and Holland were invaded, and Rotterdam was firebombed. That summer, the new words to learn were blitzkrieg and quisling. In June, France fell. The Battle of Britain began. That summer, we went elsewhere. But the fair stayed with me. Mine was the last generation, I think, to memorize a lot of poetry in school. I found the fair in Tennyson and in Whitman's Vistas. Later on, I found it in Matthew Arnold, too, in Dover Beach. Ah, love, let us be true to one another. For the world which seems to lie before us like a land of dreams, so various, so beautiful, so new, hath really neither joy, nor love, nor light, nor certitude, nor peace, nor help for pain. And we are here as on a darkling plain, swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight, where ignorant armies clash by night.
The Special Features Division of WOR brings you at this time the official closing ceremonies at the New York World's Fair. During this broadcast, we shall take you to several vantage points on the fair grounds for word pictures in this spectacle of the world of tomorrow. But here, in the Mardi Gras Casino, is WOR's World's Fair reporter, that old smoothie, Ed Fitzgerald. Take it, Ed.
Good morning, neighbors. Good morrow. This is it. This is the deadline. The witching hour at the great international exhibit known as the New York World's Fair. I want to tell you I have never seen such a spectacle as this in all my life. Inside, we've got 3,500 enthusiastic young jitterbugs, young Americans living for the world of tomorrow. I think it would be futile and a waste of time for me to discuss anything beyond this point, so I say to you, Mr. Teagarden, please play your swell number, Man and His Dream.
I think that there are moments when you can see the world turning from what it is into what it will be. For me, the New York World's Fair is such a moment. It is a compass rose pointing in all directions toward imaginary future and real past, false future and immutable present. A world of tomorrow contained in a lost American yesterday.